Most of us know what to do when life becomes difficult. We try harder. If work slows down, we put in more hours. If a relationship feels distant, we reach out again. If our health declines, we search for another treatment. And often, effort helps. Discipline matters. Action matters. But sooner or later, we meet something that does not respond to effort. A body does not heal as quickly as we hoped. A person does not come back. An answer does not arrive. A door remains closed after we have tried every reasonable way to open it. So we push harder because effort is the language we know. Then one day, we realize we have nothing left to try. That is when the deeper fear appears. The problem is no longer only what is happening outside us. The problem is what begins happening inside us when effort can no longer change reality. Modern life trains us to measure ourselves by movement. We feel productive when tasks are completed, successful when numbers rise, secure when plans are working, worthy when other people can see our progress. As long as something is moving, we feel that our life has direction. But when progress stops, we do not simply feel disappointed. We begin to question ourselves. If I am not moving forward, am I falling behind? If I cannot solve this, have I failed? If nothing is changing, is my life being wasted? This is why waiting can feel more exhausting than working. When we are working, we can prove that we are doing something. When we are waiting, we are forced to face how little control we actually have. The deeper problem is not simply that life has stopped moving. It is that we have built our identity around being the person who can always make it move. The need for control is not always arrogance. Very often, it is fear. We fear that if we stop trying, everything will fall apart. If we do not find the answer, we may be hurt. If we do not stay alert, we may lose something important. So the monkey mind keeps searching. It reviews the past, predicts the future, imagines different outcomes, looks for the mistake we may have made, blames us for not doing enough and blames others for not giving us what we need. When useful action is possible, this mental energy may help us respond. But when every reasonable action has already been taken, the same mechanism begins to work against us. The body may have nowhere left to go, but the mind continues running. It calls this movement problem-solving, but much of the time it is fear trying to escape the experience of being powerless. Whenever life refuses to move, we begin carrying two mountains. The first mountain is the situation itself. The answer has not come. The treatment has not worked. The relationship has ended. The opportunity is gone. The outcome remains uncertain. These facts may be painful, but then the mind builds a second mountain. This should not be happening. My life cannot continue until this changes. I will never recover from this. I cannot be at peace while this remains unresolved. The first mountain exists in our circumstances. The second is built from resistance, fear, and the conclusions we make about what the situation means. We are no longer experiencing only the difficulty of this moment. We are also carrying every frightening future the mind has attached to it. The outer mountain may limit what we can do, but the inner mountain begins to define who we believe we are. This does not mean we should become passive. If an action can improve the situation, take it. If help is available, ask for it. If a boundary must be set, set it. If you are in danger, leave. Stillness should never become an excuse for remaining in unnecessary harm. But there are moments when every wise action has already been taken and nothing has changed. What do we do then? Do we continue attacking reality in our minds? Do we punish ourselves for not finding an answer? Do we postpone our entire life until the situation finally obeys us? Or is there another form of freedom? One that does not depend on getting the outcome we want? To understand this question, we must look at the fastest being in the universe. Sun Wukong could cross an impossible distance in a single somersault. And then, for 500 years, he could not move at all. Sun Wukong had never built his life around waiting. From the moment he left Flower Fruit Mountain, he met every limit by finding a way to move beyond it. He crossed the ocean in search of immortality. He mastered 72 transformations and learned to travel an impossible distance in a single somersault. He erased his name from the Book of Death, defeated the armies of heaven, and declared himself the great sage equal to heaven. Every obstacle strengthened the same belief. If something tried to contain him, he could become more powerful than it. Power was no longer something he possessed. It became the foundation of his identity. I am the one no one can control. I am the one no prison can hold. I am the one who always escapes. As long as he could fight, transform, or fly away, he never had to question that identity. Then he met someone who did not need to overpower him. After Sun Wukong rebelled against heaven and demanded the throne of the Jade Emperor, the Buddha appeared before him. He did not arrive with a larger army. He did not challenge Wukong to a contest of weapons. He simply held out one hand. If Wukong could leap beyond the Buddha's palm, his claim to the throne would be recognized. If he failed, he would have to submit. To Wukong, the challenge seemed almost insulting. One somersault could carry him farther than most beings could imagine. He launched himself into the sky and traveled until he saw 5 enormous pillars rising at what appeared to be the edge of the universe. Certain that he had reached the end of all things, he left an inscription on one pillar to prove that he had been there. Then he returned to the Buddha, confident that he had won. But the Buddha had never moved his hand. The 5 pillars at the edge of the universe were the Buddha's 5 fingers. The mark Wukong had left was still visible on one of them. He had traveled an impossible distance and yet had never left the place where he began. His mistake was not that he had failed to go far enough. His mistake was believing that distance could prove his freedom. He had confused movement with awakening, power with wisdom, and escape with liberation. Wukong knew how to cross oceans, enter heaven, and outrun armies. But he had never learned to observe the mind that always needed to get somewhere else. Wherever he went, the same pride, fear, and need for control traveled with him. He had changed his location without changing the pattern that controlled him. He had reached the limit of his own perception and mistaken it for the limit of reality. Then the Buddha turned his hand over. The Buddha's hand became 5 elements mountain and came down over Sun Wukong. A moment earlier, he had been challenging the ruler of heaven. Now he could not lift his shoulders from the ground. He pushed against the stone. He called upon his strength. He tried to force his way out. For a moment, the mountain began to rise, but a sacred seal was placed upon it, and the stone closed around him again. Nothing he knew how to do could change what was happening. His strength had not disappeared, his abilities had not been taken away, but in this situation they could no longer give him control. That was the deeper defeat. The mountain did not prove that Wukong was weak. It exposed a truth he was not yet ready to accept. Strength could not answer every condition of life. For the first time, he faced a problem that could not be fought, outrun, transformed, or forced into submission, and it would not pass quickly. Sun Wukong remained beneath Five Elements Mountain for 500 years. He watched winter become spring, and spring become winter again. Rain crossed the mountain, winds moved through the trees. Generations lived and died beyond the narrow strip of sky he could see. When he was hungry, he was given iron pellets. When he was thirsty, he was given molten copper. There were no new victories, no enemies to defeat, and no audience to witness his power. For a being who had built his identity around movement, this was more than physical confinement. His power had nowhere to go. He could no longer prove that he was exceptional. He could no longer escape every uncomfortable feeling by creating another battle. The mountain held his body in one place. But what made those years more than physical imprisonment was the collapse of the identity he had depended upon, the one who could always find a way out. Most of us will never be physically trapped beneath a mountain, but we know what it is like to meet a situation that refuses to move. Like Wukong, we often continue struggling long after useful action has ended. We replay what happened. We argue with people who are no longer present. We imagine the life we should have had. We search for another explanation, another mistake, or another action that might restore our sense of control. The body may be sitting still, but the mind is fighting an entire universe. We tell ourselves that the situation is the only reason we cannot be at peace. But is the outer mountain the whole source of our suffering? Or does the mind create another prison by refusing to let reality be what it already is? Buddhism begins here, not by asking how to make every mountain move, but by asking why the mind remains trapped when it cannot. Buddhism does not begin by promising that every mountain will move. It begins by showing us what happens within the mind when it does not. In Buddhist teaching, dukkha is translated as suffering, but its meaning is wider than pain. Dukkha includes the dissatisfaction that appears when we ask a changing world to give us certainty. We want pleasant experiences to remain. We want painful experiences to disappear. We want our plans, relationships, bodies, and futures to stay under our control. There is nothing wrong with preferring health over illness or safety over danger. The deeper suffering begins when inner stability depends on getting the outcome we demand. The mountain may cause pain, but the belief that the mountain must not exist turns pain into a battle with reality. Life cannot promise that everything will follow our plans. So Buddhism asks a different question. What are we adding to the pain that is already here? The Buddha explained this through the image of two arrows. Imagine being struck by an arrow. Then a second arrow strikes the same place. The first arrow is the event, a loss, a rejection, an illness, a failed plan, or a condition we cannot yet change. It is the outer mountain. The second arrow is what the mind adds. This should not be happening. I will never recover. My life is over. I cannot be whole until this changes. It is the mountain the mind builds within, The second arrow is not a moral failure. It is an automatic response shaped by fear, memory, and the need for control. But when we do not recognize it, we may fire it again whenever we replay the event, predict the worst, or turn pain into an identity. Buddhist practice does not ask us to deny the first wound. It teaches us to stop adding injury to injury. Why does the mind keep firing the second arrow? Buddhism points to tanha, usually translated as craving. Tanha is not the same as having a wise intention. Wanting treatment for an illness, repairing a relationship, or changing an unjust situation is not the problem. Craving begins when a preference becomes a demand. Reality must change before I allow myself to live. I can rest only when I know the answer. I can be whole only when life returns what I lost. The mind then postpones peace until a future condition has been fulfilled. It says, "When the mountain moves, I will finally be free." But this makes our freedom completely dependent on something we may not control. The desire for a different outcome is not wrong. The prison is the belief that this moment has no value and that we cannot be present, alive, or whole until it becomes something else. When this pattern continues, a difficult circumstance can become an identity. The situation says, "Something in my life cannot move." The monkey mind turns that fact into, "I am powerless, I am trapped, I am a failure." This is where the Buddhist teaching of anatta, or not self, becomes practical. Anatta does not mean that you do not exist or that your pain is imaginary. It means that no condition, emotion, thought, role, or story can be found as a fixed and permanent self. Helplessness may be present, but helplessness is not a permanent identity. The thought "I have failed" may arise, but a thought is not the whole truth. The problem is not that these thoughts appear. The problem begins when we cannot recognize them as thoughts and allow them to define us. A mountain may limit what is possible in this moment, but it cannot become a fixed and permanent self. That identity cannot remain fixed. The Buddha called this anicca, or impermanence. Impermanence is often misunderstood as a promise that every problem will end quickly. It makes no such promise. It means that everything depending on conditions changes when those conditions change. Even when an outer situation remains, our emotions, thoughts, bodies, understanding, and relationship to that situation continue to shift. Some mountains move. Some remain much longer than we want. Some disappear in one form and leave us with a different life. 5 Elements mountain held Wukong for 500 years. It did not move because he demanded it, but it was not eternal. When the necessary conditions came together, the seal was lifted. Impermanence does not promise the outcome we want. It frees us from the conclusion that this moment, this feeling, or this version of ourselves will remain unchanged forever. But impermanence does not mean sitting still and waiting for life to change. Acceptance begins by meeting the present clearly. This is what is happening. I do not have to like it. What action is available now? If change is possible, act wisely. Ask for help, set boundaries, and leave danger. Acceptance ends the argument with reality. It does not remove intelligence, courage, or responsibility. When every useful action has been taken for now, acceptance allows us to put down the inner war. That is not passivity. It is refusing to waste our strength fighting the fact that this moment already exists. But the frightened mind cannot be bullied into acceptance. The part of us that keeps resisting may believe resistance is the only thing keeping us safe. It may have learned that relaxing means becoming vulnerable or being hurt again. Telling that part to just let go only creates another battle. Before the mind can release its grip, it must first feel that its fear has been seen. It must be met with compassion. Before asking the mind to accept, understand why it wants to escape. The part of you that keeps searching for a way out is not weak or spiritually immature. It may be trying to protect you. Perhaps you are trapped in a painful situation for too long. Perhaps someone controlled you, ignored your needs, or made you feel powerless. The mind may have learned one rule. If I always have an escape, I will be safe. That belief may once have protected you, but now it can keep you tense and your thoughts running even when no danger is present. Compassion does not mean that every fearful reaction is accurate or that every impulse must be followed. It means we stop treating fear as an enemy. We turn toward it and say, I understand why you want to leave. I understand why you are afraid. You do not have to face this moment alone. When we force ourselves to accept too quickly, acceptance can become another form of rejection. We tell ourselves, I should not be sad, I should be more peaceful, I should have learned the lesson by now. But these statements do not create peace. They tell the hurting parts of us that even their pain is unacceptable. Compassion allows a more honest response. This hurts. I did not want this to happen. Part of me is still afraid. I do not know how this will end. We are allowing the full truth of the moment to be seen. When pain is met without judgment, resistance may begin to soften. Not because we have forced it to disappear, but because it no longer has to fight for our attention. Only then can acceptance become genuine. And only then can we look beneath the fear and recognize the awareness in which fear is appearing. Begin by noticing what is here now. Fear may be present. A tightness in the chest may be present. The thought, I cannot bear this, may be present. Each of these experiences is being known. Fear is known. The sensation in the chest is known. The thought is known. Awareness is not another thought about what is happening. It is the direct knowing that the thought, feeling, and sensation are here. You do not need to create it. You do not need to make the mind silent. Awareness is present in the seeing of movement and stillness, hope and disappointment, resistance and acceptance. It does not remove the outer mountain. It does not erase the first arrow, but it creates space around the second arrow. So we no longer mistake every thought for truth or every feeling for a permanent identity. The mountain is here, fear is here, and both are being known. Bring to mind one situation in your life that is not moving. Do not begin with your deepest wound. Choose something you can meet gently. Then ask the first question. What is actually happening? State only the fact. I have not received an answer. The situation has not changed. I do not know what will happen next. Now ask, what story did the monkey mind add? Perhaps it says, I've been forgotten. My life is being wasted. I will never be free. Do not argue with the story. Simply recognize it as a story. Then ask the third question. What is aware of the event, the feeling, and the story? Do not search for an intellectual answer. Notice the fact Notice the feeling in the body. Notice the thought appearing and changing. All three are being known. Rest for one breath as that simple knowing, without asking this moment to become anything else. Resting in awareness does not mean giving up. For one moment, stop demanding a complete answer before allowing yourself to breathe. You can stop fighting this moment and still act when action becomes possible. You can feel pain without turning pain into an identity. You can face uncertainty without treating every fearful prediction as truth. Stillness is not the absence of intelligent action. It is the absence of inner war. From stillness, action becomes clearer. You may recognize what can be changed, what needs more time, and what is no longer yours to control. This is what movement alone could never teach Wukong. He knew how to cross enormous distances, but he did not know how to remain present when there was nowhere to go. True stillness is not being physically unable to move. It is the capacity to remain with life without needing this moment to become something else before you can meet it. Awareness shows us what is happening. Compassion teaches us how to meet it. From this place, ask, what is the most truthful and compassionate response available now? The answer may be to take a necessary action. It may be to ask for help, set a boundary, or leave a harmful situation. It may be to wait without punishing yourself, to grieve what has been lost, or to rest before making another decision. There is no single correct response for every mountain. The purpose of awareness is not to make us passive. It helps us respond to the situation that actually exists instead of reacting only to the story created by fear. And if there is no clear next step, compassion may simply mean remaining beside yourself. You do not need to solve your entire future today. You do not have to love the mountain. You only have to stop abandoning yourself beneath it. 500 years beneath 5 Elements Mountain did not make Sun Wukong enlightened. When released, he was still impatient, reactive, and proud. A long journey remained. The mountain did not complete his transformation. It interrupted the pattern controlling his life. It showed that power could not answer every condition, and that movement was not the only form of freedom. Sometimes the mountain moves, sometimes it does not. But freedom does not begin only when the stone disappears. It begins when the stone is seen as stone, fear is known as fear, and resistance is recognized as resistance, without any of them becoming a fixed identity. The mountain can limit movement, narrow choices, and cause real pain. But it cannot prevent this moment from being known. Awareness is not another way to escape the mountain. It is the freedom to remain present without abandoning yourself beneath it. The mountain can stop movement, but it cannot stop awareness.
I built a room inside tomorrow and placed my precious moments there. I told my heart we would return when life became a little fair. I kept my laughter for the morning. The mountain finally stepped aside, and every day the stone remained. Another part of me went quiet. But But morning kept finding the openings, the wind still entered on its own. And something I had left for later was breathing underneath the stone. There is a life beneath the stone, a quiet pulse that carries on. It does not wait for pain to end before it lets the daylight in. I do not have to bless the weight or call the wound a gift of grace. I will not leave myself alone. There is a life beneath the stone. Kingdom, each victory confirmed my name. I thought that freedom and the world would always move when I became. But hands created only for breaking never learn how to receive. And strength that cannot bow to anyone is never strong enough to leave. Then someone came without an army and opened what I could not own. I learned that needing one another does not make the spirit small. There is a life beneath the stone, a quiet pulse that carries on. It does not wait for pain to end before it lets the daylight in. I do not have to bless the weight or call the wound a gift of grace. I will not leave myself alone. There is a life beneath the stone. Some stones are doors that still can open. Some mark a place we should not stay. Some become a distant contour we learn to carry on our way. Give me eyes to know the difference. Give me courage to decide. And when nothing can be altered, let me not abandon life. Let my strength become a shelter, not a throne above the ground. Let the fire that once sought glory guard the ones who walk beside me now. There is a life beneath the stone, a deeper strength I had not known. It does not need the world to change before it enters this new day. I never had to love the weight or name my suffering as grace. I only had to stop believing my life was somewhere else to chase. There is a life beneath the stone, still calling every part of me home. The mountain may not move today, the answer may remain unknown, but I am no longer waiting on the other side. There is a life beneath the stone. There is a life beneath the stone.